Hello, Dream Team. Welcome along to this week's episode of The Good, the Bad and the Rugby, proudly sponsored, as always, by our fantastic partners at Continental Tyres.
Continental Tyres are the official tyre partner of England Rugby, engineered for victory. Their award-winning tyres are built to perform no matter the conditions. So get yourselves involved, drop us a like, drop us a comment, and make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcast from.
So to this week's show. And this week's guest, Joe Launchbury, 70 caps for England, a three-time Six Nations champion, an amazing career that saw him play at Worthing in National 2, Wasps, Toyota, Verblitz, and this weekend he plays his final game for Quins. Welcome to you. Is that actually, it is booked in, done and dusted this weekend, or is there still just, is there an asterisk against, this might just be the end? Is there one more tour? One more encore?
Small asterisk at the moment. Yeah, I hope it'll probably be my last game of the weekend, yeah, which I'm pretty certain. Although Quinn's injury history at the moment, we've got a fair few injuries, but yeah, I reckon to be my last one.
You might be playing 12 or 13 in a few weeks' time, given the way all the injuries are coming out. How easy a decision has it been? How are the emotions as you approach what might be the final hurrah?
Yeah, it's been a strange week, obviously, announcing my retirement. It's been amazing, really. I didn't quite know whether to sort of slip out the back door and just not really do too much of a post, or whether to make a bit of a deal of it. But yeah, I'm really glad that I sort of announced it formally and went through sort of the right channels. It's been lovely to hear from sort of old teammates from years gone by, and although the results on the pitch have been quite tough, and myself getting out on the pitch body-wise, I've not played as much as I'd like, but I think I've really sort of soaked up my last year professional and yeah, really enjoyed it.
You've obviously heard from lots of former players, teammates, coaches, I'm sure, and then you walk in here and Hask goes, Slosh! Respect,
Yeah.
perhaps not quite 10 out of 10.
I can't believe you're retiring.
Well, why Slosh, first of all?
Well, because he's got the second biggest bum in world rugby behind Bill Beaumont. Brilliant. Bill Beaumont has a real.
What were we, 2 minutes in?
Yeah, Bill Beaumont for about 40 years thought he was being followed the whole time until he realised it was his arse. He complained to the police. Slosh is not far off. Has a big old slosh bucket. Because when we used to train in the gym,
Sir Bill, let's do that.
Sir Bill,
Former
Bill.
chair of World Rugby.
Yeah, whatever. Sir Bill, and then the in the England gym, Eddie Jones introduced these slosh balls. They're called, put water in. So when you move around, they slosh around. So Launches looks like he's got a slosh ball attached to his arm. So when he sort of walks or gets going, it has its own kinetic energy and can't be stopped.
Right.
So imagine that as you will.
Take that as a tribute.
Well, that's probably to be in a nutshell, isn't it, really? That's like some nice message, you then get fully humble straight away with...
I can't believe it, because you've had an incredible career. I was privileged enough to play with you for a long part of it. I mean, from starting stacking shells in Sainsbury's to kind of 70 caps for England. But you haven't aged since I met you. I don't understand how you're... It makes me feel kind of...
Well, you look 15 years younger than you did in January.
I've had my hair astroturf. But I just can't believe it. How, when you look back at former teammates, oh my God, that makes me feel old now. And how are you 35? And how have you not aged? You're on the same oil of Eulo diet he's on.
No, I'm not sure. Mallory, my wife, would massively disagree with that.
Really?
Yeah, we're looking back at the picture this last week. I thought when I first started, and she was like, don't know where that sort of chisel face has gone, or putting a lot of weight. So I certainly look different. I don't think I've ever
the love of a good woman.
I don't ever quite look my age. I've always kind of, when I was younger, sort of baby face. When I first broke into the team, it was always, I think Finbacks was getting that now, but that was always me when I first started playing. So maybe never quite looked my age, but
no. So as you sit here now, and obviously, there's one more, maybe a couple more games to go, depending on what happens, obviously. But do you mentioned there are a few emotions around. Do you look back now and think, do you know what, it's been a hell of a ride. I got further than I ever thought I would have done. Do you sit here and think, one or two things I'd love to have done a bit differently? How do you reflect on the whole as you sit here now?
No, for me, it's definitely the form. I'm not saying I've cracked it all or necessarily achieved everything that maybe I wanted to, but I'm certainly leaving my career with so much optimism. I'm so thankful for the career I've had. I think I look back at guys I've played with over the years, some better players than me, and maybe not quite gone on and done what I've done, or players who had the misfortune of retiring young with injury. I'm so, although my body's pretty beat up, I'm so grateful to be finishing rugby at sort of 35 in relatively pretty good health. It's been an amazing run. I feel like I genuinely loved every second of it, really.
The journey to where you are now and making that decision on retirement, have there been tears? Was there moments where you're like, maybe I made the wrong choice?
Everyone's is slightly different. I feel like mine's probably maybe potentially come in two stages. I always felt, whether rightly or wrongly, I always saw, to start with, right when I first broke into the England team, I couldn't believe guys retired from international rugby. I couldn't get my head around it. I couldn't get my head around guys in the peak of their careers retiring from international rugby. I was like, I couldn't understand the thought process. But I was like, I'm going to do this until no one picks me again. And then circumstances change, things change, opportunities come and go, and my first almost decision towards the next stage of my career probably came when Wasps folded. Really, I actually had an opportunity to stay in England at Leicester with Steve, and Steve was the head coach at the time, and it was very much mid-season, so it wasn't a financial move to go to Leicester. It was an opportunity to stay in England and to keep sort of the England dream alive and to try and force my way back into that squad, and that was what I was all set to do. And then the Japan offer literally came last minute, last opportunity, and I had when you talk about do you have any regrets in your career, I genuinely don't regret the decision, but that was a bit of a sliding doors moment for me, really. It was an opportunity to get away from England. I felt pretty stung and burnt by everything that happened with Wasps, and found it quite hard to compute. And the idea of being literally within 10 days of Wasps folding and delivering the news, the idea of being in an opposition change room 30 miles up the road, I found pretty tough. The idea of sort of competing in the same league at a different club, and I felt at the time the opportunity to go to Japan and almost get away from the English rugby bubble, go and do something completely different, go and use rugby as a vehicle. And I think we'll agree that some of our best experiences playing rugby has been abroad, playing in different countries. I think you look back at the things I'm most thankful for, it's the opportunity to go to countries that I would never dream of going, and to go and play and go there for a job has been unbelievable. So to go to Japan I felt that was an added sort of an extra for me. It was a bonus almost to go there and take the family and go and do a year. But it probably did have a knock-on impact on coming back to England, and that almost felt like a sense of that. And then I guess from the back end of that, coming back from Japan, joining Quins, I kind of knew I was going to be just a Quins player. I probably knew my time had done. I've never retired from international rugby. I never needed to, because I always felt that it came to sort of a natural end. And whilst I have really enjoyed the last 3 years, I've found your body gives up on you a little bit, and that's kind of the hardest bit. Everyone, they always ask you what's given up first, your body or your mind, and for me, my body's given up, and then my mind's followed a little bit. It's
Really?
it's kind of being in sort of playing through pain, being in pain, not quite being able to do stuff that you thought was easy 5 years ago becomes a little bit harder, and you're a tiny bit off the. No one else really noticed it, but you notice it. You notice you're a little bit off the pace.
You're pissing the night's difficult.
You're a tiny bit behind, and I didn't want to be that player who the young guys looked at and gone, how did he play for England so many times? Like he's useless, and I never wanted to be that. And so I feel like I'm so grateful to be leaving when I'm leaving, at still playing at a good level for a great club.
Amazing. I was going to say, just in 2 minutes, there's just so much integrity around what you've been saying. Were you going to add
Well, I
to
was
that?
going to ask, if I gave you the choice again, would you go Japan or Leicester?
I always say, and I always kind of stand by it, whether it be decisions to leave Wasps over the years, or whether it to be, I feel like once you've made a decision, you sort of back it and you make it the absolute best it could be. And I genuinely, like hand on heart, I loved my experience in Japan. I thought it was the most
good money.
It was good. It was good money, but it was. I broke my hand. I probably wasn't a huge value to the club, but in terms of what I needed at the time to sort of get reinvigorated by the sort of prospect of playing rugby again, it was perfect for me to go and spend 6 months over there. I don't know if I could have done longer, but the period of time, I think you'll agree, it's an amazing country. It's got so much to offer.
Well, I was really interested because I was obviously, when I was at Wasps, the first 5 years, I was completely indoctrinated. I didn't want to leave, and I would have thought going to another Premiership team very difficult. And then obviously I went to Stad, Rico, Super Top 15, and came back to Wasps. And it's interesting because you then, when you're in the romance of it all, you would never imagine going down the road and doing stuff. I think now you've been to Quins, if you were then to go Quins back to somewhere else, you'd probably do it because you've broken that seal. Yeah. And I think Wasps in particular was such a club full of romance. It was never necessarily about training grounds or facilities, or it was always about the boys, and there was always such a good legacy of guys that you never wanted to leave, and you always felt that environment was always going to be the most unique. And I think it was, but everyone has unique environments in their own way. And sort of once you've broken the seal once, it's a lot easier to do it again.
Yeah, 100%. And I sit here now, so I probably, like you said, I probably would have said it was my whole career. I almost definitely would have done. I had opportunities to leave, but I always felt there was enough for me at Wasps, and I would never have left. So I sit here now in horrible circumstances, actually so grateful for the opportunities I've had, the opportunity to go to Japan, the opportunity to play for Harlequins, the opportunity to sort of go and be, and like you said, rugby clubs are amazing, unique places. They're filled with, you think, oh, I'm not going to meet a group of guys like the group we've got here. We've got a great group here. We're onto something. And you change changing room. I went halfway around the world, language barrier, but they're still amazing people, still great people. Yeah, so I guess that is what I'll miss. I'll miss that as well.
Do you look at where you're ending and sort of smile? Because obviously you were hoping to begin at Quins, and yet you ended at Quins. And there's been so many chapters, which we'll get into, and so many people you've played alongside. But do you look at your career and think there's a sort of nice irony in the way that it's finishing up?
Yeah, it's strange and it's nice. It's I didn't come from a huge rugby family, so it wasn't like I was in the sort of stands at Twickenham Stoop day in, day out, sort of as a kid growing up. I wasn't really exposed to that side of rugby, but we did go on a few school trips there and watch a few games there. And like you said, I was in the academy there. So I guess that was, like all of us in the academy, were dreaming of getting a contract at Quins. And that was obviously at the time, that's sort of 16 to 18, that was my hope and that was my aspiration. And I guess, yeah, like you said, it is a funny old way to go around the houses a little bit and end up back at Quins. It is a great club. I'm so thankful for the experience of going there. I've genuinely really enjoyed it. We've struggled the last couple of years. It's pretty well documented, and we've certainly really lacked consistency. But as a club, as for kind of what it stands for, the stadium, the supporter base, sort of the brand and the history of the club, it's a really impressive club. And I genuinely think it. I know everyone says it, but I genuinely think it won't be too long until they're back competing again at the top end.
It's really interesting to say you didn't come from a rugby family in any way, shape or form. Take us right back to the beginning. What were you like as a young kid, and what did rugby give you when you found it or it found you? How did you get into it?
Same size, just without the beard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I started rugby young, so it wasn't like I came to it really late. I started rugby at 7. I lived in Devon. My dad was a Royal Marine, so he was based at Limpstone in sort of near Exmouth and near Exeter. And that was kind of the life. He wasn't from a rugby background, not rugby family, but there were 2 fellow Royal Marines of his, colleagues of his, who had boys in the local rugby team, and they were the same age as me, and they said, "Oh, just bring your lad down, come and play." And that's kind of where it started. But there was never a moment when I saw, because of my family background, there was never a moment when I really saw rugby as being like, I was never on the pathway at England really, and it was through school. I never saw rugby really as a job. I didn't see it as a career. I went to a school that played rugby, but not a massive rugby school. So it wasn't like this is what you do, this is how it works.
But were you stand out good at that age, or did you just sort of?
I would say I was
muck
not
in?
stand out good. I would say I was good and had promise and showed talent, and that's probably why I was in the sort of wider Quins Academy. But I was never in the main group in the Quins Academy, and even at school, it was a case of like there were 2 or 3 of us who were pretty handy. I was never head and shoulders above, and in a way that kind of suited me to the ground. It's kind of I've definitely come up my shell a little bit more as I've got older and sort of enjoyed. So I understand my strengths and my weaknesses now, but as a young sort of man or sort of teenager, I was extremely introverted. I kept a lot of stuff like that to myself. But rugby probably allowed me to grow the confidence, and I think it then came through in later age. And Hask would probably say when I got appointed sort of captain at Wasps, it was probably a massive shock to everyone in terms of like, this guy, he doesn't speak too much. When he speaks, people listen, but it never came. Not that it didn't come natural to me, but it wasn't something I really craved or ever really sought out. I played rugby because I loved it. I didn't play for any other massive reason. And all those leadership bits, I guess, came to me sort of those almost skills that I've developed through playing.
That's really interesting. So was it the game that gave you confidence, or was it being in a team environment and sort of being part of something, or was it particular coaches that enabled you to kind of grow in that area?
Probably a combination of everything. I think team sports like definitely enabled me to grow a bit of confidence, sort of grow a little bit in like a social setting at school and learn a few values that way. And then I was also so lucky to be guided by some great coaches around that age as well.
What names would you put out there for people?
I've always said a coach called Andy Turner was my school coach. He is like a Harlequin fan through and through. So I think he's enjoyed me being back there. He's just retired in the last year from coaching. He's sort of a career-long coach. And when I got released by Harlequins, I was pretty ready to. I thought that was, well, they've decided I'm not good enough, so I'm not good enough. My path's going to be, I had a place at Bath University, and that was going to be, I was very keen to sort of get on with education and do that side of it. And I always felt going to Bath, there's a small part of me which is like, if I go to Bath, I might end up down the line, the links to Bath Rugby Club, could I get in later? But it wasn't a huge, but it was more of a sort of wishy-washy dream. If it happens, it happens.
What were you going to study?
Sports science. So I was always sort of sport mad, and I always saw myself working in sport, but didn't think I'd be playing.
So that's really interesting. I mean, the way that you found it. So obviously, promising at school, wider Quins Academy. Do you remember the conversation? Was it a conversation or an email or a letter? What was the point at which they said, "Thanks, Joe, but we're probably going to leave it here"? And what was your reaction to that?
Tony Diprose, who was the academy manager at the time, obviously Quins legend, he actually came and met me at school, which I thought was pretty impressive of him, to be fair. He came and met me and my mum, I think, at school and had a chat with us. And my reflection was, it was right. It was the right decision. one of the things that I'm quite passionate about in potential careers after rugby is working with guys at that sort of age. I felt like I didn't get that stage in my life right, really. I found it, I don't know about yourself, I found that like a hard juggle, the sort of 16 to 18, you're trying to juggle revising for A-levels, you're trying to juggle sort of, I guess, becoming a man, social life, all that comes with that. And then you've got Harlequins or your school trying to turn you into a professional rugby player. I ended up being okay at it all, not particularly good at any of it. I was kind of very sort of in the middle of it all. So I actually look back now and people say, oh, Quinn's had a shocker there. But I actually don't. I actually think at that moment in time, they could deal with what they were dealing with at the time. At that moment in time, there were players who were probably more dedicated than me, or came across as more dedicated and more diligent around it. So, yeah, it was... I remember it well, actually.
And there's this story, you've mentioned it already, that you were stacking shelves in Sainsbury's. Was that right?
It is.
How many times have you been
Only
asked
the
about
high items.
Only the high, exactly. Top shelf only.
They had Neville who do the low items and big.
I was
launches.
actually particularly good at a lot of old ladies used to come and ask me to go and fetch something off the further side in the shop.
But he always got fired because there's a rule in the supermarket: if you got any damaged goods, they could eat it. Launchers were smashing packets of cakes and then
I told you that in confidence, but
complaining to management, going, "Oh, find another one of these big red rolls you're eating. Oh, can't have it, Joe."
But so how did you end up doing that? What was the sort of...
So after I weirdly deferred my year at Bath. I don't really know why.
Just working it out.
A few of my friends wanted to go travelling, and I thought, oh, that'd be a good idea. So I was set to go to Bath in the September, and once I got off my place, I kind of, almost unbeknown to my parents, decided to defer for a year. And in that year, I applied for a couple of jobs in the air. I lived in the middle of nowhere. There weren't too many options of places to work. And I knew I needed to save some money before going travelling. So yeah, Sainsbury's I actually got rejected by Tesco the week before, and then I got there.
God, there's a lot going on in your life at that time. Wasn't it? Quinn's and Tesco's in a week.
It was a big rejection period, and then I worked at Sainsbury's. I worked there for not long. I worked there alongside playing for Worthing, so it's made into a bigger story than it is. But I did two or three shifts a week, and played for Worthing on a Tuesday, Thursday, on a Saturday, and that was where I ended up sort of getting picked up by Wasps. I wasn't there for very long, but it was a good experience.
Imagine Lords in a white coat with a little white hat doing
pork pies.
Pork pies. Well, yeah.
On the meats and cheeses.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, but again, I'm always kind of aware of academy guys who get it all from the start and going through, but don't have that life experience of those rejection, of trying to juggle things, of sampling jobs in the real world. That's kind of goes into the rich tapestry that becomes your career. I look back at my relationship with Joe and go, he was at times such a standout player. Like it was like he was playing a different game to us, really. And I think if you probably had more, I mean, you're a fantastic captain. If you had a more gregarious personality, it's kind of easy when someone plays that well, it's to gloss over it. But ball carrying ability, carries, tackles, physicality, offloading, skills. Like sometimes it was. I remember coming off me and Thomas Young were like fucking launcher, like it's unbelievable. And you know, it's kind of the incredible highlights, but because you're quite a quiet guy, it fades in the background. When it was honestly one of the best players in the field by I said, he was basically playing a different game. And then leadership wise, I think you were brilliant as a captain. I think really led from the front, but because also he had that kind of calm demeanour, but real level of physicality. Like I always used to love it. He would lead by his performances, which were astronomical, but then he would. I remember we'd play on Monday and we'd come in and everyone would be a bit tired. We'd always be a bit, Launch and I'd be a bit battered. Him, obviously younger than me. And then some academy kid would, in touch, start stepping in and run round. And Launch just go, right. And the next carry, Launches would just come out of nowhere and unopposed and level this kid. And it just was so out of character. You'd be like, what the fuck, Launches? But underneath that kind of calm exterior was like a real steel, professional determination. It was just amazing to behold. And it's, I hadn't really thought much about those Wasps days and how lucky I was to play with the different characters. And Launch has been right up there as one of the best I ever played with.
Do you think there is a bit of the old school about you? Do you quite like the fact that you've come through via Tesco and Sainsbury and Worthing, and that you've sort of almost had to come in through the back door rather than,
Well, I guess like we said, no one chooses it, did they? And I'd be lying if I said it would have been easier to get picked up straight away. But I'm so grateful for that. I think one of the things I am grateful for is it. I feel like we're players. We love a moan, don't we? And I love a moan with the best of them. I love massive.
What's his moaning game like out of 10?
Oh, unbelievable!
Really?
Pretty strong.
I'm really surprised by that.
But not with not a lot of humour. It's a bit like a little black cloud with an upside down face, just kind of raining on people. It's not. It's like, you know, more a bit humorous, just like all the time. But you can kick stones at the best of it and like get real negative.
And that's kind of what I think. That's a lot of rugby humor based on that. But what else I do think I've had is I've had a real sense of like how lucky we are to do what we do. I think whether it be those opportunities or whether it be playing at Worthing and seeing those guys and sort of, I think the guys. I saw you went to Isha the other week. I think those guys, they're unbelievable. They're the guys who play in the national leagues and playing the championship, and I think those guys are like, you get reinvigorated by going to those rugby clubs and seeing guys with just like a sheer love for rugby. And I think we're giving so much to the professional rugby players at the top of the game. I think we are. We
like
can,
show ponies, isn't it?
Like we can be a bit negative with it, but these guys, they do it because they love it, and I think I've tried to always have, alongside me being a little bit of a opportunity, I do try and see how lucky we are and I'd like to think that I spent most of my career really thankful for it.
This is a message brought to you by American Express. We all know how tricky it can be to find the right work-life balance, rather like the exhilarating life of our very own James Haskell. Amex understands that it's essential to work hard and to play hard.
With Amex, you can earn points on what you buy and use them for things you love.
For instance, if you're a small business, you can earn points on everyday purchases like furniture and new tech, then use those points to help you switch off and recharge.
Perhaps a little relaxing getaway for you, James, to come back into work with the right mindset. What do you think?
Do you know what? I'd absolutely love that. I'm planning one this summer.
Are you?
Yes.
Health and wellness retreat.
I think a little south of France, maybe Portugal with the family. So I've got it all under control.
Very good indeed.
The best part about these points is that they never expire, so you can save them from quarter to quarter. This means you could save up for something a little bit more significant. Let's say a trip down under to the Rugby World Cup 2027.
Nice.
A trip down under. Tins is already halfway there. He spends more time globetrotting than he does on this show.
Very true indeed. So for more information, search Amex Business Cards. Interest, fees and terms apply. Available to UK limited companies and limited liability partnerships. Signatories must be a director or member of the business. Subject to approval. See amex.co.uk for more details. Tell me about the point at which it began to get going. So you're doing the top shelf at Sainsbury's and you're playing for Worthing. You mentioned Will Green, who I sort of picked you out. You then go into the Wasps setup. There's some proper old legends in there, I imagine, when you joined. Yeah. Tell me about at what point you went from being someone who thought I might go to university and go into a bit of travelling through to, hang on, this is now getting going quite quickly.
Yeah, not through definitely not through the coach's design, but it happened pretty quickly. As you said, when I first arrived, the summer I arrived in, it had been 2010, we had like an unbelievable team of like Wasps legends. It was kind of the back end of their sort of dynasty of being the best team in Europe, really. And pretty much overnight, but pretty much in the first few months of the season, they all retired. Pretty much everyone retired. Shawsey went to Toulon. Phil Vicker retired. Steve Thompson retired. Tim Payne stuck around. Richard Burkett stuck around. Joe Worsley retired. Danwell Smith retired. Tom Reith retired. So it's like pretty much your whole pack, who they planned to have the season, all kind of left. So it was then like, right, what do we do now? And then they looked at us academy lads, who have
Cool in the slosh.
Yeah. So I'll say it was less through design. It was more, and that's the sliding doors moment of rugby. Like if I'd been picked up by Quins, it might have taken me 3, 4, 5 years to get into that Quins team. It was really established and really settled, and that's why I think I've always tried to take every decision I've made and just kind of crack on. And it was a bit of a whirlwind, but not long after, I think I joined in July, I went and played a couple of games at Roslyn Park on loan, and then within a few months I was playing in the first team, which was a pretty steep learning curve.
And did you feel comfortable from the off? Did you find the first few games you sort of entered the matrix and you weren't quite sure what was going on? What was the sort of the comfort level like in that team?
Yeah, I feel like my personal comfort level was probably, to start with, relatively low, but as a team and we knew where we were at. We had just lost a whole host of experience. There was no real expectation of us. Sean Edwards was the coach at the start, and then Di came in the sort of following year, and both of them were brilliant with me. They were both kind of like, it was almost like father figures of we'll take the heat, we'll stand at the front and take the bullets from everyone, and you guys just worry about going out and playing, and we know there's going to be loads of mistakes. We know you guys are going to make mistakes, but all we can ask is that you pitch up every week and put your absolute all in. And I look back now, and some of my best friends in rugby are from that group of guys who came through together, and we had some harsh learnings, and there's a lot documented at the moment about ring fence in the league and relegation and promotion. And that year we nearly got relegated. We had to play Newcastle in pretty much the last game of the season. to stay up. And
Was that a Tom Varndell tackle?
well, it's Tom Varnell the week before.
That was the week before.
We lost to. I think we lost. We were losing to Bath at the
That's
Red.
right.
Yeah.
We needed a losing bonus point that week to make it easier the following
right.
week, and he
Sam Vesti.
he made one of his best tackles. He didn't make many
Was it
tackles.
was
Dorothy.
only tackle I think ever.
And,
He blacked out apparently. He just woke up and he tackled someone.
and then the following week we only needed to. I think we actually lost the following week, but we needed to get hammered to go down. So that sort of saving tackle the week before actually saved us really.
And then
Wow.
he got to sign
And then
me.
and the following year
You came back.
Well, that's why, because if they had,
Because you- oh, yes,
so
of
basically,
course.
Jamie Joseph wanted me to stay at the Highlanders, but I was on no money. I'd offered, Sean had called me up to sign me to Wasps, offered me a good deal. Di Young then inherited me because he would never have paid me that money, like ever. Like I love Di, but he was a big particular guy, like certain ages, certain fees, certain money. And obviously the club had no financial money. I mean, we had that early, the first dinner I went to was at that hotel in Marlow. The auction prizes were like a rugby shirt from about 10 years ago with like 5 signatures on it, a box of old Spitfire beer but
the box had been ripped.
The box was ripped.
Couple of cans gone.
And there was 3 sponsors, and I think one of them was I think it was one sponsor 3 times, and they, it was something like a light switch company, and David Kirk was the main comedian, and it was like 5 tables and like a buffet, and it was like welcome back, and I was like, oh my god, what have we got ourselves into? And if they hadn't, Tom Varndell hadn't made that tackle, we hadn't stayed up, I was then out of contract and we didn't know where I was going to be. So it's all like sliding doors moments. We then came in and we ultimately then built a side. I mean, it went sort of, instead of going up, the chart went down further, then came back up, went down a bit, then went up again, and then fell off a cliff.
Well, to be fair, you said some nice things about me, so I go, but it took guys like Hask to come in. Really, as I said, we lost a lot of senior players. Guys like Payno and Richard Burkett were brilliant with us young guys, but we just probably lacked a bit of sort of real sort of, I guess experience. And then when guys like Hask came in, it kind of put a bit of for us young guys, it was a real case of actually we're not going to be in the bottom 1 or 2 every year. We've actually got some aspiration to try and climb out of it. And like you said, it maybe took a bit of time, but I think we can be really proud now looking back on sort of where the club went to and where we sort of those years we had.
Because the thing with it is it almost went bang
Then
around that time. And if it wasn't for Derek Richardson coming in and buying it, the club would never have survived. So he literally single-handedly saved Wasps, because when we came in that year, I think we had 1 year and there was a few issues around money. Then we had another guy come in and there was issues. And then it was on that moment where I think they tried to sell it. Someone had lied about trying to buy it, and then Derek Richardson came in and completely saved the club, and then took it to Coventry, and then obviously ultimately then failed again. But it was really touch and go all the time. And those first 2 years, to end up going to 2 Premiership finals, to go through the kind of stuff they went, to do a big move, to lose a lot of your fan base, to have all the bad PR, to launch that bond, to have all the stuff. It was actually kind of a wild period of time, because it wasn't just about rugby. That was the weird part about it. Like, when I captained before launches, we ended up going on strike. We had people weren't getting paid. There was all this kind of stuff. People didn't want to play on the Coventry field. People were getting cuts and infections. We couldn't train on training ground. We had to wear Wellington boots, and I upset everyone at was it Brom? No, where was the training ground? Broad Street. Everyone got upset at Broad Street because I'd done videos about, we couldn't go into change room on a Saturday because kids were in there. Someone shit in the ice bath. You were having traveller funerals and traveller wakes. You'd come in broken glass and smashed up blood everywhere. And you're trying to win a game, but it was the kind of this amazing journey. Now you look back at it, the romance to get to finals, to have these moments, to sign like Philly LaRue, Curtly Beale, Charles Piatow, George Smith. For us to play with all this, and have all those journeys, those amazing weekends and stuff. And the time we couldn't ever leave our cars in the car park. As soon as we went away, these lads just broke in and nicked the cars because they saw we had. They saw that our away fixtures. They just waited until we drove out the car park and then came and robbed us. And there was one of those. I think they employed one of those guys for a bit like a League of Gentlemen, who was like in one of those black puffer jackets with the orange liners and bobber boots. And I think he fell asleep with his post, and there was like someone in Matt Mullen's car smoking a joint, going through his receipts. I had all the time in the world to rob the place. It was flipping wild.
Do you remember the reaction? So you've been very complimentary about what he produced when he returned, but do you remember the reaction when you were told he is returning?
No, I think it was always positive. It was always, I guess a lot of us had, I say that Hask's way older than me. He's only a few years older than me, but what he had firstly, he was coming back to a club that sort of meant a lot to him from his younger days, which I think always carries a sort of a lot more weight. But also what he had done, and I guess that was us. We were all young professionals trying to sort of make it, and we felt like we had a really talented group. We probably just needed a little bit more direction, and obviously Hask coming in was a part of the jigsaw, and then some of those guys you mentioned after were extra sort of added parts to it. And yeah, I feel so thankful to have played with some of those guys, and yeah, some of the teams we put out over the years, we had some serious firepower.
Some of those moments as well, like just think about the finals and there were some of the best days as well. And I think as well that the environment that was created around the team and our expectations and stuff, and when you were captain as well, I think it was just it was really interesting because when someone like Launch was made captain, I don't know how he feels I was, but I kind of was very much like you sort of slot in and defer. You go, right, Launch in charge. This is the thing. I'll speak when, and it worked really well. And I think the chemistry between lots of players and the right people as well worked really well. You were really good at kind of going, not trying to do it all yourself, trying to get different people to come and speak. And I think with sport, with like guys like George Smith, he was probably the best player I've ever. I mean, every time I ask that question, you always go like, oh, Rich McCaw but George Smith was just like
even at the age he was playing with you, because he was about 40 when he came to Wasps, wasn't he?
Unbelievable. I feel like the lessons he could I think as a senior player, what do you want to do? You want to obviously play well on the pitch, and then you always want to instill habits into younger players. And his sort of the way he trained, I feel like, to be fair, that you and him would be fighting who would be last off the pitch. Sort of the level of extras you would do. I mean, he absolutely loved the drink as well, mine. So it's kind of fighting some demons during the week. He
used to get absolutely smashed up on post game. And then I think Eddie Jones, I think,
said to him, you either stop drinking or you got to train hard. He went, easy. Train a bit harder then.
And he just used to come in and put one of those training masks on and just get on the stairmaster,
just sweat it out,
screaming into it, getting all the demons out. And then by the time he'd done that, he was then fresh, ready to go again, and was unbelievable. Dropping in at 10, just threading passes through, wild. Charles Piatal, oh my god, what a player. Curtly Beale. I remember Billy Rue first came in, and we wondered who we signed, because I think the first five
he dropped the ball, didn't he?
Yeah, five passes went into touch, he shinned it over the line, and then he just came good and became double World Cup winner. Yeah.
I want to ask you about, obviously, the inevitable worst day at Wasps, but what were the best days for you? I mean, do you think of particular games or the camaraderie of the team, or the people you played under and with?
Yeah, like multiple. Again, going back to, not to go back again, but to go back to some of those tough moments at the start were some of the best. Like that feeling of sort of avoiding relegation with a group of guys we probably should have gone down, really, in terms of like the level of experience and quality we had. There's some amazing days, right through to people ask, do you wish Wasps didn't go to Coventry? But it wasn't a case that there was no, like as you said earlier, there's no alternative. It was either they go bust that day or we move to Coventry. And then I felt like some of the stuff we built in Coventry in terms of like the starting to build a supporter base, the team we've talked about already. We had some great days. I remember sort of the post-COVID really, really well. I feel like such a strange period of time, but we came back from that and we somehow just got into a run, and we all know how important momentum is in sport. And I remember we knew we were onto something half decent, but because we were playing so regularly, we took like a kind of almost like a second team down to Saracens in it for like a midweek game. We were playing Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, and we went down with a pretty good team. We probably thought, we'll chance our arm, hopefully come back with some losing bonus point, and they went full strength, and we beat them. And that's when we kind of knew, like, right, we're onto something here. We're starting to build some real momentum, and we won so many games at the back end of that season after COVID, and then we obviously came unstuck in sort of the Premiership final. So they're the only small parts of my career I would love to have won a trophy. I know they're fleeting moments in time, and I know they're gone as quick as they come. But yeah, I would love to have looked back now and having won a trophy with Wasps, and a club that meant so much to me and became like more than just a place to work for me. It was such a huge part of my life. That'd be my only, like, if you can call it regret or you can just call it something you wish happened. I would love to have got across the line in one of those two finals. You still grumble about 2017.
Yeah.
2020 was obviously the other one. Can you split them? Is there a greater pain attached to either, or do you just?
I reckon in 2020 we were never quite ahead, but we did have I think we had a 5-metre line out, really good opportunity to score quite late on in the game. The weather was awful.
Yeah, I was working for 5 Live that day.
Terrible weather. my hair was looking terrible that day, particularly. And we messed up the line out, overthrew the line out for whatever reason, and that was a chance gone. Where in 2017, I felt like we were kind of always not necessarily in control, but we had the game literally right.
Felt like you blew
right
it.
there in our fingertips. We felt like so that one was probably the one that stings more. And the team we had that day in 2017 was like particularly.
It stresses me out.
Yeah.
Does it still gets you?
I honestly think it's because I tell you why. Because I was so spoilt the first time round with Wasps.
You thought it was going to last forever.
I thought it lasted forever, but I thought I was a young player, not really thinking, and then come into that at Twickenham, launched as a cap. It was. I felt more ownership of it. We'd shaped more of it. I'd done more. Or I felt I'd done more to be part of it. And then you look at it and go, was it a chance to beat Exeter after their first, their first try? Jack Knoll just cut us at half at the tail of the line out. And we were like, oh my God, this is going to be a long day. Regroup, go again, and work so hard, play 116 minutes of rugby and fall short because of a collapsed scrum. You're like, oh, and all we had to do was just hold off and we would have won. And we gave them that penalty to draw. And it's just infuriating. And it wasn't that long to go, was there? Like
no, it's not long at all. I guess the harder thing is, how hard it is to get there. Like it's, even now it's like 18 league games, then a semi-final and a final. It's you've got to be on it all year to get anywhere near it. I think that 2017 year in particular, I think the amount of tries we scored that year, the amount of the quality rugby we played, and I think to drum the point, I guess I've kind of had that at Quins a little bit. I look at Quins a few years ago, obviously winning the league in the circumstances they won it, amazing circumstances. A lot of the guys in that team are quite young, and I feel like it's so hard to paint the picture again, going back to being the old guy in the room, saying, trying to give some sort of advice, but it's so hard to get there. But I feel like if you get there really, really young, a bit like what you're saying, not that you don't appreciate it, it's amazing. I would rather have won one than never won one, but it's sometimes hard to kind of understand how difficult it is to get there. And a lot of guys don't make it to any finals.
Yeah.
Some guys make it to a couple and lose them. It just shows how tough it is to win it.
So inevitably, when everyone ever talks about Wasps, there is the sort of what happened off the back of it. You wrote unbelievably eloquently in 2022. There was no noise. You could hear a pin drop. There was no shouting or annoyance. The air went out of the room. I cried during that meeting and found it extremely hard. It was the shock of how a club, which was 150 years old and with such a rich history, can be taken away from you in 2 sentences. We were going into administration and we were all redundant. We will always have a bond, that group who were in the room that day. What are we now? We're sort of 4 or 5 years on now. Inevitably the pain dulls over time, but do you look back now with a sense of despair about it? Are you still angry about it?
I guess it follows on quite nicely from how you're talking about having moments of like winning something and having that shared bond. And unfortunately, from the negative side, we've got that shared bond as a group. And I think the guys who were in that room that day and were part of that sort of journey in the end. And it's pretty. Like even now when I see them playing now, I think it's great. I think like watching them play, even like hearing myself now, like it is still quite raw and emotional for me. As I talked about the club that meant so much to me. I don't know why I'm.
Well, yeah,
it's part of it, though, isn't it?
No, I'm not. But it's kind of like it's a period of my time which I feel like I've never quite. Every time I talk about it now, I've never quite computed it. I've never quite understood it. It was a huge part of my life which kind of ended like that.
Yeah, I mean, it means so much to so many people.
Yeah.
It is
But I think it's very
a great
unusual.
shame for the whole.
Yeah, it's a very unusual thing to have happened. I think it's harder because as a rugby player, you did your job.
Yes.
You did your job on the field. You ate what you should eat. You lifted the weights you should lift. You did the rugby, and you relied on other people to do their job, and they didn't do it, or didn't do it well enough, or circumstances meant that they couldn't. And that's the galling part because it's so much out of your control. If you own your own business and it goes wrong, you're accountable. When you have trusted all these people, and obviously with rugby and hierarchy, there's always especially with Wasps, when I was there, I can only comment. But we didn't hear from any of them for a long period of time. Like, the reason I took the players on strike was to get them to have a meeting, just a meeting. All I wanted to do was have a meeting to talk about why guys weren't being paid, talk about the surface of the field, talk about what the future, what's happening with this training ground and all this other stuff. And the first reaction was fire, everyone fire. It's like, no, all we want is a meeting. We're not holding you to ransom. We just want a meeting. So that lack of communication was pretty difficult. And I don't know whether building up to that, it was the same thing.
You get hidden behind like privacy acts, don't you? Oh, we
Yeah.
can't talk about this. We've got the lawyers in. We can't talk about. So they kind of hide behind, well, not hide behind. It probably is. I don't know enough about that side of it
Yeah.
to be properly well informed. But we felt like we were asking all the right questions. We felt like we were pushing all the right buttons in terms of trying to figure out exactly what was going on. Clearly, we weren't, and maybe I reflect on that a little bit as captain at the time. So I let anyone down, but I don't think I did because I feel like I genuinely was in there. But like what you're saying there, you're trying to get in there, trying to get in front of the right people and speak to. And fundamentally, rugby, it's never been in the most like stable footing, and will it ever? Who knows? Wasps were a huge organisation moving to Coventry. The stadium's ridiculously impressive, but what comes of that is huge overheads, huge costs. And did COVID just sort of speed up the inevitable? I don't know, but it definitely didn't help. It probably sped up whatever was happening. And then you say that I don't hold any anger about like kind of what happened to the people that happened to. Yes, you wish and you trust those people to do the job. But my human side of me thinks that no one wanted that situation to happen. Like nobody in any position of power at Wasps at the time wanted that outcome. No, it didn't benefit anyone for that outcome. So whatever happened along the way, I truly believe that no one sat there clearly wanting that to happen. So no one won in the situation. No one won at all. So yeah, it's a strange period. But like I said at the start, it gave me an opportunity to go. And I actually look now at some of what the guys have achieved. I think it's amazing. I think everyone thinks they've got something quite good. Every club you're at, you think, oh, we're onto something here.
Yeah.
We genuinely felt like we were onto something, and I'm so proud of sort of the coaches. You look at like Lee, you look at Richard Blaze at Bath, you look at Matt Everard, who's now heading up at Worcester, Neil Fowkes at Leicester. We had a great coaching team, and the players have been fantastic. The players have gone off, and you look at some of them, you can name a whole host of them. They're all leading lights in their clubs and properly dominating, and that makes me playing a small part in their journey makes me really proud to see how they've got on.
Did it feel like death by 1,000 cuts at the time, or did it feel like a sledgehammer smashing a nut?
Oh, you feel like you don't believe it, do you? Because a bit like what you said then, a few years before, it was all the same. It was a lot of the same stories. There was a lot of like, oh, it's not looking great. A little bit of a late pay, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And not that you don't believe it, but you are just tasked, the rugby player, to get on with your job, aren't you? You're tasked. We'll do our job. The week it happened was crazy. We'd named a team to play. We'd named a team to play that weekend. Vincent Koch was going to play his first ever game for Wasps. He's now become a double World Cup winner. He was our marquee signing for the year. We only signed him a few months before. So you think, like, we can't be in that much of a bad position. We've just signed probably one of, at the time, the best titles in the world. We just signed him. And he's just come, he's not come for pennies. So
No.
you think, like, we must be all right. And we get into the season. We start the season okay. And then few grumblings start happening. I probably got myself a bit too involved. I tried to get myself in front of as many people and try and speak and try and get answers for the boys really about what was happening. Met with a lot of either privacy stuff or we're gonna be all right, but we're waiting for this to happen, or we're waiting for the line was we're gonna go into administration, which will make us more, because it would wipe some of the tax debt, I believe, so that it would make us more sort of desirable to potential people to invest in us. That was kind of the line we were sold. So when this guy stood in front of us for the sort of the meeting you've just described, that was what I felt the information was going to be. We were going to be told that. We were going to be told you're going to administration, but we're still really hopeful that we've got some investors on the table and we're hoping something's going to land. As it was, the next sentence was, and you've all been made redundant, which was a particularly big shock.
Who spoke?
I guess that's probably my only like sense of not anger. My only sense of anything is it was the administrator. So it was a guy we'd never met before.
And were any of the senior management in the room?
Yeah.
So they did turn up, but they didn't speak. And he just goes.
And I got no. He was doing his job. Like his job's
he can't
tough old minging job.
Can't fill in the administrator, but
and he did it in the most heartless way possible. But at the same time, I remember speaking to him after and him saying, "What do you want? It's like being dropped, isn't it? Do you want the coach to go around 1,000 times around the houses and tell you all these great things? Oh, by the way, you've been dropped, or do you want to just tell you've been dropped?" And that he delivered it in. He must have spoke for under 10 seconds, and it was a very stood up, very clear cut. I think it was like as of this morning at 8:30 or whatever it was. We've spoken to whatever bank it is or whatever, and you're all made redundant. So yeah, it was all very quick.
So what did you do then? You said you cried. Like, were you just or were you angry, or did people lose it?
No, it was no. I think there's a little bit of a tiny couple of questions around. A few guys asked a few questions around. I can't even remember now. In the moment, quite trivial questions.
Yeah.
Like, am I going to get my holiday pay or something like that? It's like, bloody, don't worry too much about that.
Yeah.
And then, it was kind of your classic end of day. There was a lot of emotion in that room. I think I remember getting a black bin bag and clearing up my locker. It was kind of like that. Yeah. We ended up. I think we just went. I think we in sort of rugby fashion way. I think we just went for a few drinks. But then it was such a weird position of like almost like a NFL style scramble for jobs, because I saw it as a bit of my duty really as captain to try and. So I remember sort of almost trying to do references for a lot of the guys and try and get as many people into positions. But it was a brutal time to try and get a job. It was October in a salary cap league. No one's got any space. No one's got any money. It was a bonkers couple of weeks. I look back at it now and that's I guess a little bit why I've not played for many clubs, but I feel like I've played for loads because of how crazy the time was at Wasps. Like even just moving from London to the Midlands, I feel like
You've done
so many different sort of guises.
You mentioned the WhatsApp group. Does a dusty, archived Wasps WhatsApp group still exist? You drop a note in every Christmas, or is it gone?
It does still exist. Usually consists of Alfie Barbary when he's out on a night out. We'll put a picture of him drinking on or something. That's usually there.
One man keeps the flame alive.
He'll keep it going. But it's kind of. I feel like we are definitely bonded by that time, and every time for Quins, every time I play against someone. And I know we're playing against someone who was part of that sort of Wasps group. I look forward to sort of catching up and having a chat with them. There's still a few of us who live up in the Midlands, up in the area, and we'll meet up sort of once a month and go for dinner or something. So it's strange how it's kind of you sort of get bound together by such an unfortunate circumstance.
Do you have any insight now into what Wasps might be again one day? Is there any news on where they might end up or come back?
I believe there's still like an intention to bring it back, but like anything, I'm not privy to too much information about it. But I know there's still a desire to bring it back. What it will look like, what it will sort of where it will be. How
would you like to be involved in that moving forwards as a?
I feel like we're talking about something which doesn't exist, but it's a club as I've sort of I think I've always shown it's a club that means a lot to me, and I feel like I'd always like to if I feel like I can help out and add value, then it's something I'll be interested in. But we're so far.
And you get paid up front.
And you get paid up front.
No image rights.
And back
paid up front. Oh, yeah. I would never trust. What's came about? I'd pay in advance. I'd never take pay out of cap. Never.
Yeah.
Never.
But I feel like you look at it's like the Wasps amateur team that still plays out of Twyford. Those sort of guys still sort of wear the Wasps shirt and still represent the club. So there's still a few bits going on, and the sort of Wasps Legends group is like an unbelievable organisation. They make some serious money for charities. So. There's still a lot of love out there for the club. Will it ever come back in a real professional gut? Who knows, But the way rugby is at the moment, you never quite know what's happening, do you?
Once a Wasp, always a Wasp. We shall see. Hopefully. Thank you for taking us through all that. And I know it's obviously it's still very emotive, and I think it is for a lot of people actually who were there and who've been part of that club. Why don't we, just before we move on to your England grid, bring in the Continental Tires Grip Strength Challenge? You haven't done an operation on hands or biceps.
Actually, but I'll be all right.
You're about to, okay.
That's my disclaimer. And
just before your bicep bursts, what was your forte in the gym?
Leaving it, I reckon.
The vending machine, wasn't it?
Vending Kit Kat machine on the way out.
You were excellent at that.
This is the final nail, I reckon.
This may well be a good reason
Make sure it
to
stays on when you do it.
Yeah, right. When you're ready, give it a thing, high to low.
Oh, God,
bite to the bottom lip.
big.
Oh, Sean Sharp.
62.
62. That's all right.
That probably is time to retire. That's alongside Jack Van Portfleet.
Sweaty hands.
You think with 4 kids, you'd have more dexterity in the wrist.
Three now, 4 to come.
Yeah, 3 now, 4 to come.
3 now, 4 to come.
What was it? 89, wasn't it?
Yeah.
62.9, which puts you just above Jack Van Portfleet, the powerhouse of English rugby. Well played. So that is our Continental Tires Grip Strength Challenge. And remember, premium tyres don't just boost performance, they give you better safety, control and stopping power compared to budget tyres. You can learn more about Continental Tyres at continental-tyres.co.uk. I'd say there was minimum fuss around that. We've had a lot of people in who've asked for 3 or 4 goes. It's just Joe.
No, it's not your priority, is it, Lord?
Moving on to the next.
Gym was never your big thing, was it?
I've always seen. I probably got into it more as I got older, but I've always seen it as like a huge injury prevention thing for me. Like clearly not worked over the years. But
would you reckon that obviously when you retire, you sort of make 2 choices? Are you going to go out or are you going to?
I really hope I
Jacked.
don't go out. Yeah,
Could imagine, because if you get big,
yeah, it
that's
could
going to be big.
it could be big. Yeah,
Sybil that could be a massive challenge to the throne then. Because how much are you weighing now?
I'm like 128, 129. Now,
128, 129 kgs, right? And you let yourself go to seed.
Yeah. I could go big. Yeah,
I reckon 140.
I could also. I reckon I could also go the other way. So
What,
we'll
be
see.
jacked?
We'll see. Maybe come back in a year and say we'll see.
Check in with Launches. Where's Launches? Is he on the Slosh program or is he on the lean BLT? Big lean and tanned. You can't get tanned,
can't
can
get
you?
tanned,
Physically
no.
impossible to get tanned.
Why?
He's just looking. He's like a ghost, like a moonbathe.
I'm all right at the moment.
Oh, yeah. Well,
this is good for me.
oh yeah, he's burgundy or bronze in his own mind. But
What's extraordinary about this? You get a real sense of the noise that Hask would have produced for 15 years
Yeah.
in various
we
changing
just
rooms.
Slosh used to walk off.
I feel like we just
Yeah.
slotted straight back into it. I feel like I'm back in like change room D now.
Yeah.
Back in the old changing room. But
Oh God! Remember when I was put the gum shield in?
Reheating the trauma.
yeah,
Yeah.
When I went mental and put a gum shield in and started fighting everyone to do the fines because all the wheels had come off.
Right.
unlike you.
I know. I don't know what's wrong with
It's
me.
just a permanent state of anger.
I remember Wadey owed 300 coffees and 300 bits of cake, and he just
Yeah.
refused to do it. Cooper Williams didn't do something else, and poor old Phil Swainson hadn't shaved his head. So in one afternoon's full escalation, like fighting everyone, and then Wadey came in, didn't he, with 300
You did come with all the
300 Costas and 300 bits of cake.
300 Costas.
Yeah, he went. Well, I think it was. I think ultimately a bit of exaggeration, but it's definitely 100 of this because it all spilled inside his car, which he was really upset about when he. But
Right. Your England Cup is such a mess.
it is. Yeah,
It really is.
Do you remember?
I mean, who'd be a
was
rugby player?
Toast still employed? Do you remember Toast?
Who was Toast?
Toast was there to the end. Yeah,
Was he
pretty much.
Toast? I don't know. We've got
I
a
feel like
cleaner.
rugby have like you know about the people at the front, like the players. You know about a fair few of the staff. The characters behind the scene in rugby clubs are like they're amazing.
Remarkable. So
Yeah.
you could do a sitcom.
No, we had a
on
guy.
them,
Sitcom. I remember he was a cleaner. I think he came to one of the sat down like budget lads to start eating all the food with all the boys. And we were like, who the fuck is he? And
Why
every
was he
day
called
we-
Toast?
Well, because you just kept
All
eating
you ate
toast.
toast.
All you ate
Oh,
toast. So I think we just called him Toast. I don't know what his name was, but we
Right.
just called him Toast. But he was there. Right. He was like looked like Adrian Mole, the old jam jar glasses, bottoms of jam jars, and just toast. When he just mopping. God
Yeah.
knows what he did. And he was on expense
He's probably
fiddle.
not employed. to be
I think
honest.
it wasn't employed. I think it was on expense fiddle. I mean, you literally could walk off the street, put on a wasp top,
And walk in.
and walk
It's
straight
fine.
in. I remember they caught a guy with a mad guy who was wearing a McDonald's bib, right, eating supplements with his hands out the supplement area. And everyone was like, "You're right." And then he just started praying to the photos, like giving it that one. And we're like, "Who the?"
And he just walked out and we just carried on like nothing
Yeah,
happened.
just carried on. Yeah, just carried on. I remember this
community
wife,
club.
This wife and two kids came in to use the shower. I mean, all the lads shouting. So don't mind us. Who are you? Oh, we always do this. What? What? You know, yeah. No,
They are some amazing people who work in the back end of the rugby clubs. Yeah,
Fucking wild, mate. Wild. Like, I mean, I'm trying to think what else. Some of the stuff, some of the dinner ladies.
we had
which-
the chicken burger people took over the kitchen. Were you there for that? at
No.
Broad Street? They rented out the kitchen. We had we trained at Broad Street, which was like a local rugby club, and they rented the kitchen out. It's like a chicken burger company. So at 3 o'clock every day, we had to get kicked out, and the burger shop came in and took over the canteen.
Who stayed on?
So-
One or two stayed on.
Yeah, well, maybe. I'm not doing that. You don't get to 128 by not eating
I've got a
burgers.
meeting, babe, until about 5 o'clock at the club. George is coming back with greasy fingers.
Hopefully, your England career, we can move into slightly more professional
Of
sort of
course, yeah.
remit. Tell me about. So you came in at 21,
Yeah.
and then you did 22 games on the trot. Is that right? So I mean, you
Yeah.
literally walked in and sort of established yourself. There was no kind of off the bench or academy kids or that kind of thing. Tell me about stepping up into that level and.
Yeah,
you
I
made
still
of it.
I still think now a little bit. I hadn't played loads of games for Wasps. I started to put a bit of form together for Wasps. I started to feel a bit more going from what we said earlier about were you confident or not. I started to feel like I'd earn in my position each week in the team at Wasps. And although we weren't necessarily winning too many games of rugby, I did feel like I was playing well. But then to get the call for England, I know everyone says it, but when Stuart first called me, I didn't believe it was him. The kind of classic Lana vibe. I'm not sure if you're getting pranked by your mate. And then it was, I think it was Tom Palmer who got injured playing the week. I think it was maybe for Stad. The week before the first game, and they were short. So I got called up on the Sunday. And it was literally like, can you get to Penny Hill kind of immediately? So I turned up on the Sunday, having just had the call, and I played the following Saturday. So it's like I had no real chance to, I guess, kind of stew on it, get too used to it. And again, I feel so thankful for Stuart. I guess at the time, Stuart was pretty fresh in his tenure. He'd done a Six Nations before, and then he had done a summer tour, which I'd gone on, but I got injured, and we took a expanded squad to South Africa, so I knew I was like not a million miles away, but I didn't think I was anywhere near the 23. I think we took 45 to South Africa, and I was on that tour originally the previous summer. So it was Stuart's first November. So to put someone like me in, it was Mako Vunipola and Tom Young's first games as well. So two like great human beings, great people who I've went on and played a big part of my career with. So the three of us made our debut that day, and really fond memories. Amazing run, like you said. We then went on a pretty decent run with Stuart, and I definitely got backed from a really young age.
I've got a question about England. Did you got any frustrations around England? Because I was going to pitch one to you, but I'll ask you what you thought.
I think it's so hard to sit here. You sound like a sport brat, don't you? Sit here with the amount of caps that I've got and the opportunities I've had to play for England, like play around the world. So the short answer is no. I don't have any frustrations, but we're greedy, aren't we? We're constantly greedy for. Do you want a little bit more?
Always more.
I think that's kind of I guess that's why it's made us have the careers that we've had. It's because it's that constant striving for more. And whilst I sit here now so at peace and so comfortable with everything I've done, so the short answer is no. But like anything, there's opportunities and times. I think the Home World Cup was obviously a huge opportunity, an opportunity to probably do something quite cool for English rugby, which would have maybe had you never know, but potentially a bit of legacy towards people sort of taking up the sport and being a part of a Home World Cup.
Blew it all up.
Instead we blew it up. I actually played selfishly, but some of my best stuff during that.
I have to ask you about, do you have the photograph framed and hung above the fireplace?
Someone said it to me this
Man
week.
of the match after an absolute thumping loss to Australia, in which England exit the tournament. It's one of the great English sporting moments.
He's fucking livid.
What were they thinking? What were they thinking?
Well, it was a fan vote, so I imagine England fans were there to either not understand that Australians could be voted for.
When the media guy who came up to me after the game was like, "Joe, you've got man," and I think like, can I just not do it? And he was like, "You can't." It's like, I think it was like MasterCard, or like you have to go and do it. I remember I trudged back to the changing room after getting it. It was like the lowest it's ever been.
Yeah,
it
was
like,
not good.
Exiting the Home World Cup at Twickenham in front of
with a game to go.
It couldn't have got much worse.
Yeah.
And there's me trudging back to the changing room with that. Well, it's pretty big. That fit. It's a pretty big old bit of kit. I remember just stuffing it into the kit man's bag on the way in and being like, I'm not taking that anywhere near the changing room.
Your face paints 1,000 words.
The only way it could have got worse is if people had taken financial advice off the kit man and spent a load of money on that, or lads sold out other lads.
You then had to do the best thing. The following week, they pulled in Hask as like English rugby's pretty low. What do we do? I know, we'll bring in like Renta Hask. We've gone up to Manchester for the week, and we had a day off. And you did some like comedy. You did like a comedy sketch, didn't you? Of like basically bagging all the coaches, all the players.
I mean, this is what, can I just explain? Because this is wild. Like, so we never had any lead. I was never involved in any of the leadership meetings in 2015, so didn't really play. I then got called into the leadership meeting the day after we lost against Australia, right? And they call in, and I sat around, it's like Andy Farrell, I sat there, and I've gone, listen, guys, I said, we've still got Uruguay, is the last game.
Yeah, the big one.
That's the big one. I said, the wheels have come off. Lots of criticism is going to be thrown at us. But whether we got it right or not, you cannot challenge, I remember it now, you cannot question our effort and our determination and how hard we've worked. The coach will get criticised, we'll get criticised. But lads, we've got an opportunity to finish this. We're going to get hammered, but we put the fucking work and we need to show what we did. And the coach is like, right, can you say that in front of all the other lads? That kind of, go look, deal with this kind of stuff. We've been there before, 2011. I understood it. So I said, well, I can. So anyway, in the next meeting, Hask got something to say, said all that, we'll go out and train. They then went, look, what we'd like you to do is like an unofficial awards ceremony for the lads. And I went, and Andy Farrell's like, mate, yeah, look, you can just fucking go as hard as you want, mate. And I went like, are you sure? And they're like, yes. Anyway,
do you know who I am? Have you seen my previous work?
So I then put together an awards thing for each person in that training squad. And it was like, it was, we did something for Matt. What was his name? Matt. Someone. We had the cyclist.
British cycling. That's
and
right.
I went. Matt. So every time we had a meeting, they would do these graphs that would have like arrows pointing up, pings popping out of smoke, and it'd be like, you're 8,000 quattrons higher than you were before. And if you keep doing this at 125% of 2,000%, you will be pinging by the time we get to World Cup final. And it was all this kind of crap, and it was always graphs going up. And we all worked very hard, but I basically did this whole chart where I was like, bits were going up, flames were coming up, charts were going up, and I went, and then it all fell off a cliff. And I went, do you know what all these numbers are leading to? One place only. A picture of the job centre and him in a window eating a protein bar, because he always fucking ate the protein bars. He put on about 85 stone. He was addicted to protein bars. So I mugged him off, and I absolutely hammered everyone. Lads loved it. It was wild. We went out, and I think then obviously the wheels then massively fell off after Uruguay. Everyone got knifed. Some of the lads sold stories and other people. Then all the Cipriani stuff came out. The kitmans came out, and it all just blew up. And I think someone just discreetly deleted that presentation, because I think it would have been pretty dangerous.
I've opened a can of worms there, but it was it was a good time.
That was wild. I can only imagine. There were some very good days in your England career. We mustn't forget that. I mean, I'm thinking you hadn't been in very long on the day you beat the All Blacks.
Yeah, my fourth cap.
That was your
it's the
fourth
first
cap.
campaign. Yeah, it's great. Like again, like you sort of grow up watching them, and I don't think anyone gave us a hope in hell really of winning that game. They had someone like they had one of their properly on it then. So to beat them, well known as like the day that Manu sort of showed how good he was. Very special day to be part of.
So I was going to ask the frustration thing I saw came up before we got the sidetrack was, do you think, because I was going to ask about more caps around maybe the line out stuff, because that was one thing I always got frustrated at on behalf of you, was the perception that you weren't necessarily like a line out forward in terms of organisation running the calls, and obviously latterly you got involved in it. Do you think that hampered you a little bit? Do you think you were judged as that not necessarily giving the opportunities that cost you caps?
I feel like when I first broke into the England team, there was like guys like Jeff were playing. Jeff Parham was like, he was the line-out guy. So there was not really a huge amount of opportunity. And you go back to like club level, we had some unbelievable like line-out callers over the years. Like Mark Venzel was there for a number of years. Like James Gaskell, Kinnan Mile were guys, and they were in the team to call the line-out. And I felt like I always had quite a lot on my plate outside of that. So it was something I never really pushed that hard. And then I got to a point what you're describing then of like, oh shit, I actually could really do with this extra string to my bow. When guys like Courtney were going to play, they were going to be a part of it. He did it a little bit. He didn't throw
it to me, bruv, at the back, and just catch it one out and fucking.
He was unbelievable in the line-out, but he had no real. He wasn't madly keen on all that the detail side of it. So I knew that if me and him were going to play together, I'd need to sort of get up to speed with that a bit more. So I probably came to it a little bit too late in terms of like become a real. But I feel like I've become a very proficient caller as like a secondary caller. I don't see it. Yeah, I see it as they do like to make it more complicated than it actually is. But it's not really a skill that I've done a huge amount of.
No. It's interesting you mentioned Courtney. So you played with Courtney 20 times, Jeff Ponning 11, Maro Toje 10, and then Charlie Ewells, Cruz, and Dave Atwood a handful of times. Who were the guys that you loved, or the guy that you most loved playing alongside? Who brought the best out of you?
To start with, Jeff was good with me. He was great with me. I can see why he's got on to be like obviously the coach he is now. The way he sort of helped me as a younger player, but also his like analytical brain around. I think he'd be the first to admit he probably didn't necessarily have all the attributes to be an international lock forward, but he got the most out of his career, and that was something I always hung on to. But for me, it was probably Courtney. I feel like Courtney, me and him played some great rugby together. We probably suited each other pretty well. Some of the stuff he could do, I could never do. Some of the hits he could do, those sort of things. But I'd like to think, and some of the other, maybe the bit like unglamorous sort of more stuff was the bits I probably enjoyed, the bits that I always valued quite highly. So I feel like we complement each other pretty well.
Talk about that. I mean, you're a player with the most combined carries and tackles in a test for England men's since 2012 is you with 41 versus Wales.
That's a busy afternoon.
That's a busy afternoon. Do you know what I mean? Like the thing I always learned from Gatland and Sean Edwards back in the day with Wasps, that you have to do your role, and you need people to do what they do best, and then you allow other people to flourish. But also you can combine it with, if you're great at rucks and tackling and carrying, then just do that. If you're great at those things, and you've got to have that yin and yang. That's why numbers on shirts don't really matter. It's the balance. You can't have, in back row, for example, 3 ball carriers and no one wants to hit ruck. Equal in the second row, you can't have 2 guys that are just just want to carry and no one clears the rucks, because who's going to be there? You've got to get that balance right. That's why selection is so important. I think you always compliment everyone you did, but you had that ability in open field to make those breaks, to offload, and to be a destructive tackler. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like one of the things I'm most proud of, and the things I really hope is true, is that I allowed. You were talking there about combinations and the sort of makeup of teams. I really hope that I allowed the guys around me to sort of really sort of grow into them and fulfill their potential. And I like to think I improved the teams I was part of. I might have not had some of the real necessarily standout exciting moments maybe some of them had, but had that bit to my game for sure.
There's a really good quote which I think probably adds to what you're saying from Ben Kay, who said about you in 2020. He said, it's Joe's ability to crack the gap between lifter and jumper, to get through, to morph his way through. He's like the Terminator. He changes into Mercury and gets through to the opposition side, which is, I mean, Ben Kay is one of the best analysts in the game. He's been there and done it, etc. But it is exactly what you're talking about. It's not necessarily drop goals or breaking try records. It is disrupting power, presence, that sort of thing. Are those the components of your game that you always thought set you apart?
I feel like when I first came into the side, maybe it's slightly different. I think I probably didn't value the set piece quite so highly. I loved carrying the ball. I loved sort of being in the wide channels. I love like looking for an offload, those sort of things. That I probably measured myself, like a lot of young players do, on those sort of moments. And I guess as I've gone through the game, gone through the different challenges, I'm probably now retiring as a slightly more, a lot through age, but through like a bit more of a set piece forward now. I guess the bits I enjoy the tight side of the game. I enjoy the scrummaging. I enjoy sort of like the stuff in the maul. But I guess I've had to, in a way, that's kind of what I am most proud of. I think to have longevity. You look at some of the guys who've had much better longevity than me. The ability they've had to sort of not necessarily transform their game, but find bits in the game to sort of put forward at certain times in their career, whether that be through getting a bit older, losing a yard of pace, and just finding different ways to evolve the game. And I do credit Eddie a bit for that. He pushed me extremely hard to sort of, and Steve, to put a bit more onus on some of the set piece stuff as being a forward. You can't play at international standard without having those bits really squared away.
It's interesting you mentioned Eddie and Steve. I was going to say, which of the coaches that you think got the best out of you, club and country, and how did they do that? Were you a carrot or a stick or just a quiet word? What was the secret to getting the best out of you?
I still don't know what the complete secret is. Eddie, you got into a weird habit of you always have the whiteboard on a Monday morning. The whiteboard would always be pretty telling as to who was in the team that weekend. There'd be a bit of a list of guys on one side. They'd have some bibs for them, and it was pretty obvious.
So you knew immediately?
It was pretty obvious who was playing. He got into a bit of a habit of not putting me in, even if I played well the week before. I was like, yeah, I'm pretty confident I'll be back in. He would make a habit of putting me on the other side, and I'd be like fuming. I'd be like, why the hell am I not in the, like, what have I done to get dropped? Like, what have I, like, I feel like I've played well. I feel like everyone's telling me I've played well. And then on like a Tuesday afternoon when he named the team, or Thursday morning, I'll be in the team. I'd be like, what was that all about? And he would like eventually, after a number of times, like not a number, but consecutively, I would have worked it out. But he used to do this quite sporadically over a few years. And he went, mate, I want to see, I probably, it used to fire me up. It used to like make me train better. I used to rip into training and be like, what the hell have I've been dropped? And I'd be fighting. And he was like, you train better, you train with more intent. So like he knew, he was really clever at, you hear anecdotes all the time from Eddie about and that's kind of his way. He never spoke to me particularly wrongly or rudely. He knew that wouldn't really work with me, but he had a couple of bits of that which really did push my buttons and probably get the best out of me. In terms of coaches, I think Steve stands out for me. I never had Steve as a head coach. I'll be fascinated to be sort of inside the camp at the moment and see what he's like as a head coach. I think he'd be a brilliant one. But in terms of as a forwards coach, I can't speak highly enough of everything that went into him as a coach. I think coaching's a brutally hard job.
Yeah.
It's like every single day you've got to stand up in front of a group of extremely cynical men who you just get one word wrong and they are in the change room after hounding you, like being like, he said that wrong. Like, yeah, you got 50 of him.
Case in point.
But that's the best example of a scripture of rugby I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And it is brutal. But I feel he straddled the line really well between being desperate to win at the weekend and putting systems in place, whether it be at the time sort of line out stuff which we needed to win, getting us like the best mauling side in the world at a time. He did all that, which was very team focused, team first to get us for the weekend. But he was straddled that with making you a better player individually. And I feel that's a really hard, like, coaching is, you've got to win at the weekend or you're out of a job. But the coaches who can do that, but also improve players for the long term, I feel like all of us used to leave England camp and it would be tough and you'd be away from family, but you could categorically at the end of every camp be like, I think I'll become a better player for those few weeks. And as a player, I guess that's all you can ask. I thought, like, if you feel like you're leaving an environment of 1 or 2% better player, then how good is that? It's brilliant.
You had some unbelievable days with club and England. It was interesting when the announcement about your retirement was put out last week. There were a number of comments on the BBC website talking about the fact you were never a Lion. Crying shame he was never a Lion. He was absolutely good enough. Up there near the top of the list of the best players never to have been a Lion. I always felt he was unlucky not to have been a Lion in 21. Do you drink from that cup, or are you?
I look at it as like anything in rugby. It would have been an unbelievable experience. You hear about guys who were lucky enough to go on tours, and they all talk about it with such fond memories, amazing experiences with people from different countries, how you come together, going back to right to the start about team sport, what it does for you, bringing people together. And I'm jealous that I probably didn't have that experience. But in terms of, like, I don't hold any root. Like, I feel like there were probably a couple of opportunities when I felt like I was playing well enough, but like anything in sport, it's one or two people's opinion. I actually grew up watching sort of Six Nations, because it was on BBC, not really having access to watching too much of the Lions. I didn't grow up like, I grew up desperate to play for England. I grew up as like a boyhood fan wanting to sort of run out of Twickenham. I probably didn't quite have that for the Lions. Easy to say as someone who's not a Lion. Of course, I understand that. But for me, playing for England was like the pinnacle. Don't get me wrong. It would have been the cherry on the top if I had an opportunity to go. And like I said, those experiences people have had, I'm slightly jealous of that. But no, I'm pretty at peace with it all.
So you've got a fairly significant hip hop.
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Thank you.
And then what? What is next? I'm guessing not coaching, judging by what you've just said. Or are you interested in elements?
I feel like I would love to stay involved with rugby. I'd love to stay, whether it's like rugby or sport in general. But obviously, rugby is where I feel like I've got a lot to offer. I feel like I've got a lot to offer the game. I feel like I've been really diligent at the rugby. I feel like I've had a career that I'm proud of. I've studied hard. I've done various things, coaching badges, but I'm still retiring in a couple of months' time. Pretty uncertain about what's to come. And there's actually something.
Is there fear? Do you have fear?
Yeah, there's definitely something like daunting about it. I'm trying to be like optimistic and be like excited about it as well. I feel like there's definitely excitement. I think that comes from, I feel ready to stop playing rugby. I feel like I've given it the best go I could give it. I feel like, could I do another year? I could probably hobble through another year. I mean, increasingly more and more pain as sort of time goes on. I feel like I want to get out whilst I don't want to be that player who the young guys are going, how did he get capped for England? He's useless. I don't want to be that. They probably think I'm already that guy, but I don't want to become that even more. So I feel like I'm at peace with that. Yeah. But yeah, it's a scary old, it's such a strange, something you've known and been institutionalised for your whole time. But yeah, I'll be optimistic to stay in rugby. And as I talked about, I'm quite passionate about sort of the slightly younger age group of that sort of testing period around sort of end of school, start of professional life journey, whether that's in the transition space or academy or in like a schools type space. And I feel like I'm probably like open to the idea that the next 5 years, 2, 3, 4, 5, however long, could be like a bit rocky. It could be, I'm probably expecting to not stumble into the best job straight away or the dream job, or I'm kind of quite open to that. But at the same time, I also appreciate that I don't think there's many jobs like the one I've just had. I don't think I'm going to necessarily find what I've had. I'm quite big in, I'm not in like I want to be like a great present dad. I feel like that's something that means a lot to me. And I feel like another part of my career I'm really proud of is that I have given it the best go professionally, but I've also been quite a present dad as well. And that's been really important to me. And that's kind of, I'd love to keep that going. Obviously, like you said, the finance side of it, the opportunity, I have a desire in me as well to make a success of myself. That will never leave me. Right. But I do want to kind of caveat all that by, I want to do what's right for them as well. Plenty of guys go off and do amazing things in the city and go and get jobs. That doesn't feel like me. It may, 10, 15 years time, could be corporate me, sloshing
140
around.
140 kg slosh in a pinstripe suit.
And you never know, but I'll be surprised. So yeah, but like you said, it's great to speak to guys. There's plenty of us who've sort of trodden that path. I also think sportsmen, part of my, I guess, my sort of academic look into it is we do make a big deal of it, and rightly so, I think. But thousands of, like, most people transition at some point in their adult careers. Very few people come out of uni at 21 and do the same thing to they're 65. Most people sort of pivot, and yes, there's a huge identity around being a rugby player. But I also feel pretty strongly that I look at some great cases of people who transition really well and really positively, and hopefully I'll be one of them.
I've so enjoyed this couple of hours. It's been absolutely fantastic, and I reckon if you are looking for something, the fact that the last couple of hours has included so much diligence and hard work and resilience, an amazing amount of talent, and obviously achievement in there as well. I think you're pretty well set for whatever comes next. I wish I'd heard more of this along the way, but we've said that on so many occasions. But like, I know they talk about Delalio as, such an inspirational leader at Wasps, but I think the way that you handled the darkest day in the club's history and the way you speak about it now is unbelievably impressive, and it sort of just sits alongside a glorious England career.
And I think look, as I said in my opening kind of comments, that Launches was like,
you called him Slosh in your opening
Well,
comments.
sorry, Slosh
downhill from there.
My follow-on comments were,
light and shade is always
light and shade, obviously. Keep you on your toes, Launches. I think what just an incredible player, teammate. Know how respected he was. Just almost again undersung for what the moments and bits that he did, even though it's an amazing career. It's one of those things when I actually sat and focused on it and sat down to, I was like, oh my God. I remember those days, what a dominant player he was, but also that balance between being emotionally right, loved by teammates. Launches was always so well respected, so well liked. No one ever said they didn't like Launches. Really professional, really diligent, but had that kind of tough edge, and was an incredible player that delivered in some massive occasions, and rightly so, and probably should have got more plaudits in terms of just the way you talk about players, because the game moves on quite quickly. But 70 caps, the dominant games, the dominant performances were sensational. And like you said, the opportunity with the Lions, but it's not the be all and the end all. Plenty of amazing players never got a chance to do that. So I'm just very excited to see what you do and how you go. And I will never forget some of the moments at Wasps. Some we can talk about on here, some we can't. Just some of the wild stuff. And part of a really emotional, interesting part of our lives. But we've got this few launches. This is our Black Eye Gin.
Thank you.
It's a thank you. We're in Waitrose. We're in Amazon.
We're not in Sainsbury's, actually. If you've got any contacts there,
I'll get my contact.
If you could
stat that.
My old manager said I got a job for life, so I'll try and get it in there for you.
We pledged £1.50 of every bottle sold to the Black Eye Players Fund. We just give them 20 grand to Lewis Moody.
Off to Lewis's dinner on Wednesday.
Yeah, we are. We've got a Black Eye table there, so we're helping you. So I recommend it with the Mediterranean tonic. We're also launching a tequila launch. I don't know if
amazing.
You're never a big, massive drink away.
No, I don't mind. Maybe not tequila. I'd love a little
gin.
Little gin tea. Well played. Good luck this weekend.
Appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. It's been great chatting to you all. Sort of reminiscing about the good and maybe the not so good times. But no, I've loved this, and I've loved every second of it.
Should we catch up with you another 5 years? You had enough of me then?
Maybe.
His people will call your people.
Yeah.
Well played. Good luck.
Thank you.
Onwards. What a great guest we've had this week in Joe Launchbury. A quick reminder of the details before we finish up. The lock-in's available on Apple and Spotify at £3.99. Do look out for our other shows. Good Bad Football, Good Scouts Rugby, Rugby Confidential, Good Bad Beast, and Joe Marler will see you now, all in your usual channels, and the Luxury Dispatch as well, which is well worth a listen if you haven't found that one. Continental Tires are proud sponsors of the Continental Tire Schools Cup, driving the next generation from the ground up. We are a platform media production, stats and facts provided by Russ Petty and Oval Insights. And this episode was produced by Tom Edwards. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next time out. Bye for now.
You've been listening to The Good, Yay, The Bad, and The Rugby, Oof, with Alex Payne, James Haskell, and Mike Tyndall. Thanks for listening.